Good afternoon and welcome to the 108 News. I'm Marta Matsko, and today you'll be hearing updates on current news, breakthrough science discoveries, and how local police are trying to help the community. The drug addiction in America is coming to an all-time high. Let's hear what President Donald Trump has to say about it. Last Thursday, President Donald Trump declared the opioid epidemic a national public health emergency. Trump stated that, as Americans, we cannot allow this to continue. It is time to liberate our communities from the scourge of drug addiction. Never been this way. We can be the generation that ends the opioid epidemic. We can do it. The opioid epidemic has also brought up the issue of the Mexican-American border because 90% of the heroin in America comes from Mexico. Trump suggested that authorities need to strongly enforce laws against selling and buying these illegal drugs. This weekend ends daylight savings time, pushing the time back 1 hour. Prepare for a hard Monday morning as you wake up an hour earlier than you were this week. As the day gets darker, it's a perfect time to curl up on the couch with a hot cup of cocoa. Lots of headlines in the news recently have been about the investigation of Russia's involvement in American politics. Here's Taylor with an update.
The investigation of the Russian involvement in the 2016 election has caused 3 arrests. Officials don't know what is next for Washington. Democrats fear that President Trump will try and shut down the investigation, and Republicans are afraid they will lose the head in legislation. President Trump insists that his campaign had no connections with Russia, but his involvement is being questioned. As of Monday, October 30th, 3 people in the Trump campaign have been charged with accusations including conspiracy against the United States and conspiracy to launder money. Paul Manafort, chairman of the Trump campaign, was first charged with a criminal offense in relationship to Russia's involvement in the United States government. George Papadopoulos, another person that was charged, admitted he made a false statement to the FBI regarding Russian connections. Manafort's business partner Rick Gates was also charged with illegal connections with Russia. President Trump has stated he has no connections with these charges.
Breakthrough news about the pyramids of Egypt. Scientists have found an empty void in the Pyramid of Giza. One of the main mysteries of the last of the standing 7 ancient wonders of the world is how the Egyptians were able to build such a large structure. In 2008, a lone wolf architect, Jean-Pierre Houdin, presented that the Egyptians built the massive structure using an internal ramp that is still hidden in the pyramid. The new discovery of the empty space is just one step closer to solving one of the greatest mysteries of all time. Many questions still unanswered about the attack in New York on Halloween. Here's an update of what we know now. Around 3:05 in the afternoon on the warm Halloween day, a truck driving on West Side Highway in New York City crossed over to the Hudson River Park Bikeway. The truck then went speeding down the path, hitting anything that got in its way. It was after a mile of the rampage when a school bus hit the truck, ending the violence just blocks away from the World Trade Center. 6 people were confirmed deceased on the scene, and 2 more died of injury caused by the accident. More than a dozen people were critically injured but are now stable. Originally, road rage was considered the reason for the incident, but based on the distance the truck drove, it was clear that this was a deliberate attack and was made to hurt people. Once the suspect was out of the car, he yelled Allah Akbar, which means God is great in Arabic. This made police question whether or not this was a terrorist attack, similar to the ones in Europe. The suspect, now identified as Sayfullo Saipov, was carrying what looked like guns but were later shown to be paintball guns. Officers shot Saipov in the abdomen, bringing the end to the tragedy. After investigation, detectives were able to link Saipov to ISIS, making this attack the worst terrorist attack in New York City since 9/11. Our hearts go out to the families of the victims and hope this will just make America stronger and more united. On a lighter note, local police are developing a new approach to respond to calls involving people on the autism spectrum or with developmental disabilities. Cranston Police have created a voluntary registry where people can let police know if there is a residence that has someone with these disabilities. With this, police can change their approach, such as not using lights and sirens because it might cause sensory overload. We now talk to Elliot Lefevre, a special education teacher at Barrington High School, about these changes.
Yeah, so I think this is all about, the safety of the individual involved. Statistics say that people on the autism spectrum are more likely, 7 times more likely to have experiences with police officers, yet only 20% of those cases involve criminal activity. So it's important that, we understand that these situations are happening because maybe someone with developmental disability or on the autism spectrum are involved with police, but not for criminal activity. They could be lost, they could look like they're lost, they could be out of sorts, and so they're being approached. Police want to know what's wrong, but it's important that police know kind of what triggers can set someone with these disabilities off. So yeah, limiting the lights, limiting the sirens, limiting sounds. Also, students and people on the autism spectrum or with developmental disabilities can be their own best advocates. Many of them have what's called the first responders card, and they can actually present that to the police officer as a way to identify themselves as someone with special needs so that the police officer can tailor his or her approach with that person.
Thank you, Mr. Lefevre. This concludes today's edition of 108 News. Thank you and have a great day.